I want to break down who are the most overhyped and underrated teams entering the upcoming 2024 NFL season. The New York Jets, I'm going to start off with them. The Jets are extremely overhyped, not because they can't make it to the playoffs, but because there still is a large group of folks out there who see the Jets as a Super Bowl contender. And there's no chance in hell the Jets are going to make it any further than the divisional round. When you get into the playoffs, it's a different season from what the regular season is. And the teams that make deep playoff runs are teams that not only are talented, but also have great coaching. And Robert Saleh hasn't shown that he's a good coach. And you got Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator, who is only employed because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. And the New York Jets have just had way too much offseason drama going on between Aaron Rodgers missing mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. Hassan Reddick, you trade for him despite knowing that he wanted to get paid. He wanted a new contract and he wasn't going to show up until he got that. But yeah, you still proceed to make the trade anyway. And now he comes out and demands a trade despite never stepping foot in the New York Jets facilities. You know, things like this are why I can't see the Jets being a Super Bowl team. You don't hear of Super Bowl teams having this much drama and this much dysfunction inside the organization in the offseason. When you see a team make a deep playoff run, everybody's bought in, one team, one goal, and there just is way too much going on with the Jets for me to see them being anything more than a second round playoff exit. And that's why I see the Jets being overrated this year and overhyped. They do have a top 10 roster. They do have a lot of depth at a ton of positions, but there's just too many distractions and too much weirdness in the air with them for me to see them making a Super Bowl run. The Denver Broncos are extremely underrated this year. Most analysts out there expect this to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this season. I've seen a good amount of mock drafts that have them picking in the top 5. And every year, there's always a team or two that's projected to be one of the worst in the NFL that end up overachieving. Prime example last year were the Buccaneers and the Houston Texans, and those two teams both made it to the postseason. The Broncos, I don't think they will be a playoff team per se, but they definitely will be competing for the 7th seed in the AFC this year. Bo Nix is going to prove to be an upgrade over Russell Wilson last year. Sean Payton has had success with every quarterback he's coached. He has a winning record without Drew Brees. He was 5-0 at one point on top of the NFC South with Jameis Winston his final season in New Orleans until he got his season cut short. He helped Teddy Bridgewater get paid by Carolina after being 5-1 as a starter and replaced Drew Brees when he was injured in 2019. And that was during a time of Teddy Bridgewater's career where not only did we have questions about if he could still play at the NFL level, but how was he going to be effective coming off the devastating leg injuries that he sustained in Minnesota. So if you can help Jameis Winston play the most efficient football of his career, you can revitalize Teddy Bridgewater's career, and you can find a way to win 9 games with Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian at quarterback. You can win with Bo Nix. He is the perfect fit for Sean Payton's system. He gets the ball out fast, he plays well within the structure of the offense, and he has more athleticism to open up the playbook for Sean Payton and throw a different wrinkle to this Broncos offense that we haven't seen when they had Russell Wilson at the helm due to him diminishing, regressing, losing athleticism. The Broncos defense was not good statistically last year under Vance Joseph, but this was a defense that was good at getting key stops in critical moments of the games because they were one of the best teams in the NFL at forcing takeaways. This defense should be decent enough that with your offense improving, not going 3 and out every 30 seconds, this should help out the defense. So the Broncos, They got a low win total. People have them around 5 wins. I can see this being a 7-9 win team at best this year if everything works out and goes right with Bo Nix and Sean Payton. The Miami Dolphins, I don't see this being a playoff team this year. Losing Vic Fangio is one of the biggest reasons why I'm shorting the Dolphins this year. They got rid of Vic Fangio because he didn't get along with the players. The players felt like he was too soft. Well, he was too tough. He was an a-hole. But he improved that Dolphins defense from being one of the worst in the NFL to being a top 12 unit, despite the injuries that they had to some of their key players like Jalen Ramsey, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. And with him leaving, it shows me that the Dolphins as a team are just soft. They just have this oogly boogly kind of personality under Mike McDaniel where, you know, they want to have a loving environment there. They don't want to be too hard on the players. And that's why this is a team that consistently gets outclassed and outmatched when they have to play in cold weather games. They lack physicality. They lost 2 starters on the offensive line in free agency at guard. You lose your starting center as well. This is a team that is definitely in for huge regression this year. Tua got paid. I don't think he deserved all of that money. He's a top 10 quarterback, but with the losses that they suffered on their offensive line, it's going to be hard for them to overcome that. And this is a team that reminds me a lot of those Chip Kelly coached Oregon teams. You know, they're a track team. They're really fast, got a lot of speed, but they don't have the physicality that you need to go far in the playoffs. And I don't even see the Dolphins making it to the playoffs this year. I got them at 7-8 wins this season. That's why I have them being overhyped. In football, we all know that no quarterback can win without good protection up front. It's also important that you protect yourself from data brokers who sell your personal information online to scammers, spammers, and anybody else who may want to target you. That's why you should use Aura, today's sponsor of this episode. Aura shows which data brokers are passing away your information on the internet and automatically submits opt-out requests on your behalf. Go to aura.com/JTSports in description or pin comment down below to get a 14-day free trial and protect your personal information from being exposed online. Cleaning up your information online not only helps reduce the amount of spam you receive, but it also protects you from hackers who could use this info to help gain access into your social media accounts, bank accounts, or other sensitive information. Go to our sponsor, aura.com/JTSports in description or pin comment down below to gain access to your 14-day free trial and protect yourself from hackers looking to gain access into your sensitive information online. The Los Angeles Chargers. This is one of the most underrated teams entering this season because people are judging this team based off talent and not based off the improvements that they've made with their coaching staff. You got Jim Harbaugh, who probably is the best head coach the Chargers have ever had in over the last 3 decades. He's won at every level, college, NFL. His first couple of years when he was coaching for the 49ers and his first 3 years coaching that team, he led them to 3 straight NFC Conference Championship appearances and the Super Bowl appearance as well. He won at Michigan, Stanford. Everywhere Harbaugh goes, he turns around that team, that organization, that program into a physical, hard-nosed team. The Chargers have a great offensive line. They got a good stable of running backs that with Greg Roman being their offensive coordinator, you know it's not a matter of if they're going to have an elite rushing attack. You know they're going to have an elite rushing attack because Greg Roman's track record, everywhere he's been great at getting the most out of the ground game with how advanced his run schemes are. The Chargers also, with Jesse Minter being their defensive coordinator, they're going to go from one of the most embarrassing defenses in the league to one of the best in only the span of a couple of months because Jesse Minter at Michigan had 2 of college football's best defenses in 2022 and 2023, and he's going to carry that over into the NFL because he already has an NFL background. He spent a couple of years coaching on the Ravens staff, so he already is acclimated to the NFL game. He already ran NFL concepts with his blitz packages. He's very aggressive, sends a lot of pressure, a lot of extra guys to get after the quarterback. This team all around has improved because of the hiring of Jim Harbaugh, and you give him Justin Herbert, one of the most premier quarterbacks in the game. This team is a lock to make it to the postseason. I don't get why so many people say this won't be a playoff team because they don't have good receivers or they're not that talented, where if you look at Jim Harbaugh's resume, he's never had elite wide receiver in play. That's not how he builds his teams. He builds his teams being tough up front and being a physical football team that wants to impose their will against you in the trenches, which the Chargers are going to be able to do this year because they're good up front on both sides of the football. As long as Justin Herbert doesn't get injured, they should win nothing less than 9 games at worst. The Las Vegas Raiders, they're overhyped to me just off the narrative that people think this can be an 8-9 win team again this year because of the success they had when Antonio Pierce took over as the interim head coach in replace of Josh McDaniels. But when you look at all of Antonio Pierce's wins last season, only one was against the team that had a winning record, and that's when they had that Christmas miracle and they beat Kansas City, not completing a single pass after the first quarter. You have one of the toughest schedules in the league this year. You're playing some of the NFL's best quarterbacks, Mahomes, Herbert twice. You got to play Joe Burrow, Lamar. You know, it's going to be hard to win games when you're handicapped at quarterback and you're saying that, yeah, we can win these games against these great quarterbacks and teams by just running the football, relying on great defense, when it's not 1999 or 1986 anymore. Unless you got the 86 Bears defense that you're going to be throwing out there or the 2000 Ravens defense this season, you're not going to win a lot of games with that kind of philosophy. You need to have somewhat of some competent quarterback play to pull off some of these upsets. And until you end up getting a better quarterback, it's hard for me to see you not being one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. It's a quarterback-driven league. Yes, teams have been able to win and overachieve with backups at quarterback like the Browns last year with Joe Flacco, but that's because they had an offensive-minded coach. Antonio Pierce is a defensive-minded coach, and he hired one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league in Luke Getsy, who was the same dude who people scapegoated for why Justin Fields didn't work out in Chicago last season to be their new OC. This team is going to be a complete disaster offensively. And despite how good their defense is, your defense gets put at a disadvantage when they have to play a lot of downs due to your offense being inept at being able to move the chains and keep drives alive. So the Raiders, to me, are a great value version of what the Pittsburgh Steelers have been under Mike Tomlin the last couple of years. The Seattle Seahawks, this is, to me, the NFL's biggest sleeper team walking into this year. You got Geno Smith at quarterback, but he wasn't the reason why Seattle didn't make it to the playoffs last year. What has held Seattle back the last couple of years has been that their defense has been one of the biggest disappointments in the NFL, despite how well they've drafted on that side of the football. You hire Mike Macdonald, who people are considering to be the offensive version of Sean McVay in the defensive light. Well, let me rephrase that. People are considering Mike Macdonald to be the defensive version of what Sean McVay is offensively. And with the talent Seattle already has, you got Devon Witherspoon, you got Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe, a lot of talent up front and depth on the defensive line and your pass rush that Mike Macdonald in year one as Seattle's head coach should be able to take that defense from being one of the worst in the league to one of the best in only the span of one offseason, just because how good he is with the defense And this is a division, being the NFC West, that you have two of the NFL's best offensive minds in Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. We saw what Mike McDonald's defense did to the 49ers when the Ravens just embarrassed them on Christmas last year. So if you can replicate the success that you had with Baltimore's defense, you're more than capable of being able to do the same with Seattle. Seattle has playmakers offensively. And Geno Smith, he's good enough to get you to the playoffs. If Baker Mayfield can take Tampa to the postseason, so can Geno Smith with the weapons that he has at receiver, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. You got Kenneth Walker at running back. If your offensive line can be a little bit decent, this, without a doubt, to me, not only is a playoff team, but a team that is capable of being able to win the NFC West. The Buccaneers are overhyped because they had a good run winning this division the last couple of years with Todd Bowles at head coach is really impressive. And what he did last year was surprising to me, because last year at this time, most of us thought that the Buccaneers were going to be the worst team in the NFL, or one of the worst. But you made a great hire with Dave Canales at offensive coordinator. He's gone to become the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and you got a new OC in there, and Liam Cohen, who comes from that McVay coaching tree. He spent the last couple of years mostly calling plays for the University of Kentucky. He had a good year with Will Levis in 2021, but outside of that, he hasn't really done anything noteworthy. And if you have followed Baker Mayfield's career, he's never consistently strung together two Pro Bowl level seasons. He'll have a Pro Bowl level season one year, and then he'll regress the following year after. That's why Cleveland traded him away in the first place. He was too up and down. He didn't have consistency. You can be a top 15 quarterback one year and the top 20 quarterback the following season. So I still need to see Baker Mayfield piece along two really good seasons back to back for me to be sold that the Buccaneers are consistently going to be a playoff team. And it's the same thing with Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles has had the most success he's ever had in his coaching career, and the Buccaneers still have struggled to win double-digit games. They won 9 games last year, and the final year with Brady, they barely got to 8. So for the Buccaneers, this team is not going to be a playoff team in my eyes, and I think they take a big step back this year. And lastly, I got the Carolina Panthers. I'm picking the Panthers to win the NFC South over the Atlanta Falcons. Dave Canales just has a different energy about him that I haven't felt from the last couple of head coaches the Panthers have hired since they fired Ron Rivera. He has been responsible for two of the NFL's biggest comeback stories the last 2 seasons. Revitalized Baker Mayfield's career last year, rejuvenated Geno Smith's career after serving as a backup for the last couple of years, and helped Seattle, become a playoff team. Everywhere Dave Canales has been, he's helped elevate the quarterback play, and I don't see why he can't do the same thing for Bryce Young. He was drafted first overall for a reason. Bryce Young carried Alabama. People think that Bryce Young was carried by the talent that Alabama had around him, where that shows me that you weren't watching Alabama football, or either you don't have a good understanding of college football, because the Bryce Young years that he played under Nick Saban were some of the worst teams that Alabama ever had. Bryce Young's final season, the only first-round pick he played with was Jahmyr Gibbs, and after he left, Nick Saban overhauled his coaching staff and changed his philosophy because he said they were too Bryce Young dependent. Bryce Young was cold when he was at Alabama, and probably the best quarterback that Alabama ever had in the history of their program. And with an improved wide receiving core, bringing in Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, you also improved the interior of your offensive line. This is a team that I trust more than the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are weird. They got some weirdness going on with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins struggles the first couple of games, how much pressure is on Raheem Morris to start Michael Penix when the fans start chanting for him. And Raheem Morris has been a head coach before. This is his second opportunity. A lot of second chance head coaches don't work out in the NFL that often unless you're Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick. So the Carolina Panthers are the team that I trust the most to win that division. And these are my most overhyped and most underrated teams entering this upcoming NFL season. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below.